Welcome back to another class of app development with Python. In this class, I'm going to show you everything to get you knowing about anchor layout. Well, anchoring a layout or anchoring any specific part of the console is very important while working with box layout. Now, if you've seen the previous classes attentively, and if you've seen a really good result at the end, then this class is exactly right for you to understand anchor layout. If you still have any confusion or question about the previous classes, feel free to ask me anytime. I'm always there to help you out. But if you do not understand or did not understand the previous classes, then it's going to be a hassle for you. So go check out those videos. Do not miss any part. And also what you have to do is after every class, you have to practice on your own to understand it a lot more better. So without any further ado, let's move on to our class by opening up PyCharm on our device. As you can see on my screen, I have opened up PyCharm using the previous KV file and also the main py file. So first thing, we're going to go off to the main py file and create ourselves a class, which is going to help us to put another variable. And we're also going to import it up to our import, let's say the anchor. Okay. So here, instead of using this box layout example, we're going to create ourselves a couple of spaces to create our class. So here I'm going to put in class. I'm going to put in anchor, and then you're going to put in layout example. There we go. As we have our anchor layout example, now we also have to put in the parentheses and also we have to define it. So inside, I'm going to put in anchor layout. Okay. So you can see anchor, both of them are being used over here. And this is also termed as an argument. And at the end, we're just going to put in a colon. And here we're going to import it up into our Kiwi UIX. So here I'm going to put in another space and I'm going to put in from, let's say kiwi.uix dot, and then you have to put in anchor layouts. Make sure to use this one as a lowercase because this is going to be used as the Kiwi UIX file. And then we're going to import up this file to our anchor layout, which is basically this one. So I'm going to put in anchor layout. So basically we are good to go with our imported file. And then we're going to pass it up so that we can bypass it. So I'm going to put in pass, and there we go. We are good to go. Now, the next thing, what we have to do is we have to go off to the KV file where we are going to customize it just a bit. Okay. So here, instead of working with box layout example, we are going to be working with anchor layout example. So we're going to remove it and I'm going to put in anchor layout. Okay. And now if we play it up, you will basically see an error, or you might also see a blank screen. Okay. So if you see an error, what you can already understand is that it is working. And even if you see this, black screen over here, it also means that it is working because now we have imported our anchor layout and we do not have any specific buttons. So why is it not taking up any of these values? It's because the time or let's say the customizations or the modifications which we did are basically on the box layout example. But we are not using the Kiwi or the KV file for the box layout. We are only importing out our box layout example. And you can see on both ends, we have not customized any anchor layout. So you can see we've passed it up directly into our box layout, but in the KV, we are not using the box layout as the KV file or so that we can bypass it up. So now we're going to customize it a bit more and we're going to go more and ahead into this class. Okay. So one thing we're going to do is that we can see at the bottom, we will find out main widget. Okay. Because there is where we are working with main widget. Now let's just remove this part because we do not need extra ones. So I'm also going to be customizing and removing out certain parts because we do not need them. Let's say I'm going to remove it up. There we go. Box layout, you can label it up anytime you want to. So if we play it up, you'll still see that it is still showing me this blank screen because we cannot customize it anytime soon. So here, if we put in the main widget, it will still like, it's just going to overlay again with the buttons. So if we just put in, let's say main widget, it's going to bypass it up to main widget and it's going to show up the screen where we have our widgets, okay? And widgets, and also we have our specific label. But we do not want that, so we're going to change it up and we're going to keep it box layout example. We can try that too. So if I put in, let's say, box layout example, then we are basically bypassing it to the box layout and it's going to show me the customizations I've done on this one. So if I play it out, you'll basically see a lot of these buttons and labels, and you might also face an error like this. So I'm going to do is going to be putting in example over here, box layout example. There we go. I'm going to cut off this part. There we go. Now let's play up the whole thing. And this is how it should look like. Okay. But we do not want that. We only want our specific value or our anchored value into my console. So for that, we're going to be changing it back into our anchor layout. So we're just going to turn it into anchor layout. And now we're going to move into our customizations. Okay. So I'm going to do is going to be removing it. Let's say I'm going to put in anchor layout example. Okay, so let's just play it out and you'll basically see a blank screen. Now inside of this, we're going to customize. Let's just make a couple of the space. And here we're going to put in that, bypass. So I'm going to do is going to be using this greater than and, less than sign. Now here I'm going to put in, let's say, anchor layout example. There we go. Anchor layout example. Open up, put in a colon, and here we're going to put in, let's say, orientation. But instead of orientation, let's move on with buttons. So I'm going to put in button over here. And inside of my button, I'm going to put in a specific text to represent up what we want. So if I put in text over here, put in a colon, and here if I say I want it to show me W, and if I play it up, it will take up the whole screen that you will see over here. Now I'm going to do is going to be removing this area. So let's just say I'm going to do is going to be customizing it just a bit more. Let's say we have anchor layout example. Well, basically, if you see this error, one thing what you're going to do is that go off to the main py file and make sure to, put in this, stoppage or postponing, your command line just by using three quotations and also end it right over here. Now, one thing you might see is that if you do not end it right over here and if you play it up, it will show me the same error and it's going to be the string error. Another thing, what you're going to do is that make sure that only your button is not being used, but we need the widget to be available. So for that reason, you can see that the class is starting from over here and the app should end on the app. And then we have this button and it should also end on the Kiwi button, which we are using. Okay. So here we can skip the button, but make sure that the widget is available. So here we're going to postpone it just by using three of these quotations over here. Now it will allow us to use every one of these except for the button. Okay. So make sure to use it just like this. And then you're going to try playing it again and it might show you an error again. Okay. So you're going to do is just reduce the space one more time and play it out. If it shows you an error again, make sure to put in 2 spaces, play it out. And this is how it should look like. And still, if you are facing this error, one thing you have to keep in mind is that if you're using box layout on all of these values or all of these widgets, it's not going to work. So you have to make sure that to remove out this box layout right over here and try playing it out. And then you can see that we have that specific value A taking up the whole space. If we now remove and change the alphabet and turn it into D, it's going to show me the D value on all of this. Okay, so this is how simple it is to fix in this error. Now you can also use multiple values. Now, instead of just keeping it just the way it is, you'll be able to customize it just by using size int. So you're going to press on enter, and I'm going to put in size underscore hint. Okay. So put in a colon over here, and you're going to put in the percentage. So the percentage is going to be 20%, comma, and then it's going to be 20%. So if I play it out, you'll basically see now it is taking up 20% of the height and width inside of my console. Now it's not going to be just the, size. So we can also use it in a way of customizing the X and Y axis. So if we want to fix out the X and Y axis, we have to make a couple of lines. So here, instead of the button, we're going to create two of these lines. I'm going to hit on enter, and I'm going to start off on this indentation level. I'm going to put in anchor. So in anchor, we're going to start off with the X axis. And on this, I'm going to put in, let's say, anchor underscore Y axis. Okay. So here I'm going to do is going to be reducing up the size of this specific alphabets or specific line. And we're going to do is going to be using different variables, which is going to be of different size. So for that, I'm going to create another line. And here we're going to put in the hash value, hash. Now it's going to start off with the right, comma, left, comma, and then the center. So three sides of this axis. And now we're going to specify, let's say, where you want it to be. Is it the bottom or the top, or is it at the center? So I'm going to create like after anchor, I'm going to create another line, or let's say I'm going to create another one over here. And I'm going to put in hash or the hash value. Let's say I'm going to put in bottom, comma, top, comma, and then the center. Okay, so we have three of these values too. Now we're going to define and customize it just the way we want to, just by putting in another variable inside of our anchor Y and X axis. So here on my X axis, I want the widget to be on, let's say I want it at the left or maybe at the right. So if I put in left, I have to put it inside of my double quotation. So if I put in left, there we go. We have defined it, colon, and I want it on the y-axis to be, let's say, at the bottom. So I'm going to put in double quotation, put in bottom, and now you can play up the whole thing. It will already be defined. Okay, so you can just make sure that the anchor which you are using is also inside of the hash command. Okay, so we're going to put it up as another hash command right over here, but you can also keep it just the way it is, but it will just define up this, arguments. Okay, so if I just put in hash, put in a bit of space, and if I just play up the whole thing, you'll basically see this is how it should look like. Okay, now if I define it, let's say I want it on the right side and I want it at the right bottom. So if I play it out, it's going to be on the right bottom. It is still not like totally at the bottom. So if I just put in 1%, I'm going to put in 1% over here too. Let's play out, and you can see we have 1% almost at the bottom. Okay, so here what you're going to do is going to be customizing your size hint just the way you want to. You'll also be able to customize it in different ways. So what if I say I want it at the left side and I want it at the center? So let's just play it out. And you can see now this is almost at this level. And you can also put in top. Okay, so I'm going to play out the top part. You can still see it is still at the center. Now what you can do is you can just remove out this one and play it out. You'll basically see it might give me an error like this, and it's going to finish up with the exit code 1. So make sure to always use this hash command and a bit of space to define like, let's say, the axis. So if I put in center, if I play it out, you'll basically see now it is at the center. Okay, so this is basically how you are going to define up the center, just like this. You can see now it is working like this. So we have to also put in the quotation, and we have to put in, let's say, bottom. Hit on enter and hit on play, and you can see This is still not at the bottom, but we can try a different value. Let's say I'm going to put in top value. Let's just try this top value over here. Let's play it out. It is still not working. So if it's not working, you have to customize it just the way you want to, and then it will be customized. Okay. So here, what we're going to do is going to be creating couple more of the axis. Okay. So to create couple more of the axis, we're just going to remove of the specific value. Let's say anchor Y is going to be just the way it is. There we go. Anchor Y, play up the whole thing. And you can see this is now at the center. Okay, we will be able to customize it and keep it on the left or the right at the same time. If we want to work with the button and we want to customize our secondary button, we also have to put it inside of the loop. So right after size hints, let's say I'm going to create another one. Let's just cut this off. Button. Over here, put in this size. And here, I'm going to put in, let's say, text. Okay. So here, instead of putting in D, we're going to put in, let's say, F. Okay. Or maybe an E. So here, I'm going to put in after button a colon. And also make sure to use the hash command inside of it. Okay. It's going to help you to actually loop up the whole thing. There we go. Put in a bit of space over here, colon right after that. So I'm going to put in a bit more space, which is going to help us to determine it. And here I'm going to put in, let's say, E. There we go. We have one E. And now I'm going to hit on enter again. I'm going to go off to this specific value. I'm going to put in hash. I'm going to start off with text. And right after text, we're going to start off with the size hint. Okay. We're going to work off with this one, hash value. There we go. And I'm going to put in size underscore hint. There we go. And you can put in that specific value. If we used 1, let's just try using 2 over here, comma 2, dot 2 again. And now you can play up the whole thing. If it shows you an error, you'll be able to customize it anytime. It's totally fine. But one thing you have to keep in mind is that whenever you are working with buttons, you have to make sure that you remove out the displaying buttons, which is going to be the hash values. Okay. So here I'm going to put in, let's say, the Y, or let's say I'm going to put in, let's say, instead of center, let's just put in left. There we go. Let's just put it on the left side. Play it out. Now you can see we have it on the left side. And we also have the anchor Y totally empty. And we can also remove out this hash command because we can play it anytime we want. Okay. But you will basically see this is how it might show up as an error if we do not use our hash command, because it's just basically, bypasses it up to the next commands or the next arguments over here. So you can see we have the text values. We're just also going to customize it just a bit more. There we go. Now you can play it up. It might show you an error because now it is not on the same line. So you have to keep that thing in mind. You can see we have anchor Y, which is an error over here. Okay. So we're going to keep it just the way it is. So instead of that, we can put in a colon. And now if we use in that specific value, either the bottom, top, or the center, it will be there. So if I put in center, it's going to be at the center. Okay. Now if we put in, let's say, the bottom, it's going to be at the bottom. So if I put in bottom and play it out, you can see it is at the bottom. If we put in, let's say, top, it's going to be at the top. Okay. So now you can see that our values are working. Now what we're going to do is going to be customizing or modifying our values again with the box layout. So right after the anchor Y, we're going to be creating our another value, which is going to be the box layout. So here I'm going to press on enter, and here I'm going to put in, let's say, box layout. Okay. So we have the box layout variable, and I'm going to put in a colon. And inside of that, we're going to put in the center value inside of our size hint. Okay, so here I'm going to put in, let's say, size int, hit on enter, size int. Inside of that, we're going to be like cutting this off, Control X, and paste it out. And now you can like play out the whole thing and remove out certain parts. And you can also do the same thing on the next button, and you can like just play it out. Let's just remove out this size hint over here. Let's just remove it out. And we're also going to be removing out the hash commands inside of it. Okay, so we can represent up the whole thing. So let's just remove it out. Let's just play it. Let's just remove it. Instead of that, we're going to put in, let's say, double quotation. And here I'm going to put in, let's say, the text is going to be E. And we're also going to be removing out these hash commands. There we go. There we go. We have that. So now if we play it out, this is how it should look like. We have D and also E at the same time. As you can see, it is showing me only one of these. So one thing we're going to do is that obviously when we are using box layout, we have to put all of these values inside of that box layout. So I'm going to create another space over here and play it out. And now you'll basically see both of them will appear up. If I just put in center over here, and if I just play it out, you'll basically see this is how it should look like, and it has been anchored inside of it. So basically, this is what you have to follow up over and over again, and you can practice along. It will just make it a lot more easier when you play along this, or, when you just follow up these commands. And this is basically how you're going to create anchor layout examples inside of your console of app development. Okay. So hope you understood about everything. And if you still have any confusion or any question about any part of this lesson, feel free to ask me anytime. I'm always there to help you out. And obviously make sure to follow up the steps which I've like shown you, and also follow up the things which I've done, because if you do not fix in, or if you do not follow up, you might face a bit of hassle later on if you are totally new to Python for app development. And it's a bit confusing, and it's also a bit really complex at certain times, but I'm trying to show you everything you need to know about step by step and how you can fix up errors and also get the end result with a positive outcome too. So without any further ado, let's move on to our next class. And if you still have any confusion about this class, then feel free to ask me anytime. I'm always there to help you out.